Good evening, Mr. Levitt.
Hi.
Is it true that the U.S. gave 1 month to the Lebanese Army to remove Hezbollah's arms? Otherwise, Lebanon will fall under the scope of Chapter 7.
I would not put significant stake in that. The U.S. government, I'm sure, has made it clear to Lebanon that it is expected to live up to its side of the agreement, the ceasefire agreement. And so far, while the Lebanese armed forces, as far as I'm concerned, have overperformed compared to what was expected that they would be able to do, it still has not performed up to what it is required to do under the ceasefire agreement. The LAF still doesn't have sufficient forces. It's supposed to have 10,000 forces in the south. And while it has gone in and confiscated some Hezbollah weaponry, and it has come in behind the Israel Defense Forces and taken control of key sites, enabling the IDF to withdraw, it is simply not capable of moving into all the areas that it is supposed to, which is why the United States has agreed to Israel's proposal that the IDF remain in 5 key locations, 5 key hilltops from the near the border near the sea, all the way west and north to the area of Kfar Kila. And I think that's just a factor of reality of what the LAF has been able to do to date.
But do you think that the disarmament of Hezbollah in the south is possible without a direct confrontation with the Lebanese army?
That, of course, is up to Hezbollah. The Lebanese army is required under the ceasefire to disarm Hezbollah and to take control of all military locations, bunkers, etc., throughout the south. And Lebanon agreed to this. So this is not a point for negotiation anymore. Whether Hezbollah decides to challenge the LAF is only something Hezbollah will know. But the LAF is not a bunch of bureaucrats. This is the Lebanese armed forces. They are the military. Their job is to be able to carry arms and engage when necessary. And I'm sure that it is the Lebanese armed forces' preference to be able to do this without having to engage Hezbollah militarily. And they need to be prepared to engage Hezbollah militarily should Hezbollah force that issue.
Will the U.S. pressure on Hezbollah and the Shiite community affect Lebanon's stability, in your opinion?
I think you have to break that question down into two. I do believe that there is U.S. pressure on Hezbollah, to be sure, together with the pressure that the Israelis are putting on, and frankly, the pressure that's coming from many segments of Lebanese society. I think many Lebanese are pretty annoyed with Hezbollah for initiating a war with Israel at a time when the country was undergoing severe political and, more importantly, economic hardship. But to suggest as the second part of your question did that the U.S. government is also targeting or putting pressure on the larger Shia community, I disagree with. Hezbollah is not the entirety of the Shia community. To put pressure on Hezbollah as a militant organization that is dragging the entire country of Lebanon into war without being voted upon is separate from the entire Shia community in Lebanon. So not the U.S. government, not the Israeli government, nobody is putting pressure on the Shia community writ large. What they are doing is putting pressure on those sub-state militant actors who are holding weapons and rockets independently of the state, making decisions of life and death, war and peace for all of Lebanon without being elected by anybody. Those actors, yes, they are under pressure, and appropriately so. Hezbollah dragged Lebanon and Israel into a war that neither wanted, and Hezbollah has to be contended with as a military actor, so that it becomes something that is just a political actor, social actor within Lebanon.
What should U.S. policy be toward Lebanon at this point? Should Washington engage more directly with the Lebanese state?
I don't know that the Washington can engage more with the Lebanese state, because Washington is engaging aggressively and proactively with the Lebanese state. Morgan Ortagus was just in Lebanon meeting with senior officials. U.S. government officials are highly engaged on implementation of the ceasefire with a U.S. general on site in Lebanon. Uh, this ceasefire, the stability of both Lebanon and Israel and the Lebanese-Israeli border is something that is of great importance to officials here in Washington. And I think it's good that officials here are so vested in the well-being of Lebanese and the stability of Lebanon. Doing that is going to require some pressure to enable Lebanese government forces to establish sovereignty over the use of force, to reclaim the mantle of governance from a group that was never elected and is maintaining independent weapons and military bases throughout the country. The ceasefire agreement, which the government of Lebanon agreed to, is very, very clear. And it should be fully understood and expected that Washington is going to hold Lebanon to its obligations, just as it will hold Israel to their obligations.
Do you think that the ceasefire deal between Hezbollah and Israel will hold, or that the confrontations will resume?
So first of all, this is a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Lebanon. And that's why the requirements are on Lebanon and the Lebanese armed forces to control the militant group within its border threatening another state. The ceasefire will hold so long as the LAF does what it has agreed to do, what is required of it under the deal, and makes sure that its neighbor to the south is not threatened by a militant actor within its borders. If this does not happen, if Israeli civilians are not able to move back to their communities in the north, if Hezbollah continues firing rockets or shooting into Israel, if Hezbollah is able to try and maintain weapon systems in the south, then I have no doubt whatsoever that the Israeli forces will take it upon themselves to strike those weapons. And we've seen this from time to time when the Israelis have found a Hezbollah operative trying to move weapons from a vehicle to a house or a house to a vehicle. They've struck, and they've struck farther into Lebanon too when necessary. So it's critical that the Lebanese armed forces periodically, with the help of UNIFIL, though to be honest, UNIFIL has not been particularly useful here, continue to enforce the deal. And if the deal is implemented, it will last. And if it's not, after 17 months of war that it did not start, I am quite confident that Israel will defend itself if necessary. Because Washington understands how serious Israel is about ensuring its security, Washington is deeply vested, not for Israel's sake alone, but for Lebanon's sake, out of an interest in U.S.-Lebanese relations, to make sure that this deal works so that the war that people of Lebanon did not want, but Hezbollah thrust upon them, does not resume.
Dr. Levitt, is now the right time to talk about peace between Lebanon and Israel?
I'm happy to talk about peace at any time. I think the question is, are the parties willing to talk about peace? And the parties here are not just the government of Israel and the government of Lebanon, but of course the spoilers, and in particular, that involves Hezbollah. Some other actors as well, but primarily Hezbollah. Look, Hezbollah is committed to Israel's destruction, and it is very clear in its founding documents and all the documents since that it does not believe in any type of peace deal. That said, if the ceasefire is fully implemented, if Lebanon is able to direct and corral Hezbollah away from militancy and towards political and social activism within Lebanon, then you could have a situation where Lebanon could decide for itself. Does it want to formalize the land border, the so-called blue line, as it already has along the maritime border, in order to put this state of war behind them? There would be great interest in this on the Israeli side. And settle the few areas of borders disputes that remain, including whether the Sheba farms are Lebanese territory or Syrian territory. All of that could be on the table. It is absolutely critical to be able to end Hezbollah militancy for that conversation about peace to have any chance of succeeding.
How do you perceive the upcoming funeral of Hassan Nasrallah and Hisham Safieddine?
I expect that you will see a tremendous amount of pomp and circumstance. Hezbollah is going to try and use this to demonstrate that as badly as they have been hit, they are still there. They can still throw a big party. They can demonstrate presence and strength. The fact is that it's not just Hassan Nasrallah and Hisham Safieddine that were killed in this war Hezbollah started. It was not one or two or three or four, but at least 5 layers of Hezbollah leadership. Many, many Hezbollah fighters and a tremendous amount of Hezbollah weaponry. The Hezbollah that existed in June and early July simply does not exist anymore. They are as hateful today as they were then, but their capabilities are nowhere near today what they were then, and their leadership is lacking. They have lost the Assad regime in Syria, and the Iranian regime back in Tehran is under pressure as well. And so Hezbollah finds itself in a deeply unenviable position. And so for all the pomp and circumstance and the ceremony and honorifics that will be going on at this funeral, it does not actually mask, at the end of the day, the severe military, financial, political leadership crisis that Hezbollah continues to face.
How do you see Iran's support for Hezbollah evolving amid Iran's own economic struggles and regional priorities?
Iran would love to be able to fund Hezbollah as much as possible. But this is not the first time that Iran has found itself experiencing its own problems and unable to fund Hezbollah as much as it might like. Think about what happened after the 2009 Green Revolution and the impact of sanctions and the drop in the price of oil. And there have been other times between now and then. But that's not it. Beyond the constraints of Iran's own economy and the pressures that Iran is experiencing with the Trump administration, Iran no longer has the Assad regime in Syria. It has lost the land bridge across which it traditionally sends weapons and money to Hezbollah and Lebanon. The rebel-led government of Ahmed al-Shara, Mohammed al-Jilani in Syria, has already stopped multiple smuggling shipments of weapons through Syria to Lebanon, including one as recently as yesterday. And so Hezbollah and Iran are both in a very difficult position in terms of figuring out new ways to send weapons and money to Hezbollah at a time when Hezbollah desperately needs both.
Thank you so much, Dr. Levitt, for taking part in this interview.